Hey everybody, this video is for anyone who felt like they didn't really understand the assignment from last week about asking questions about the development of behavior. If you earned anything less than a 4, you probably should listen through to this video and make sure you understand these concepts. It's a bit like ethogram writing, where the expectation is that you kind of understand these ideas because they're going to become the foundation of how you're going to write about and talk about the development of behavior going forward. So like any of the assignments like this, very much like the ethogram one, you have to start by reading the stuff at the top. And I think a lot of you that didn't score a 4 probably were kind of just scrolling down and trying to answer questions at the bottom without fully looking at this part, or maybe you just didn't understand it. So let's go through it together. When you're going to write a question about the development of behavior, there's a format, and here's the format right here. And it's very simple. You just plug in the category that you want to know about the development of. So you ask the question, how did, then you say the name of the category of that behavior from your ethogram, develop. The way you answer the question then is you tell us how the behavior changes over the life of the animal. And you do that in a couple of ways. You start by predicting which parts of the behavior are innate, and I'll describe that in a second. You then have to describe which parts of the behavior are learned and how that learning could have occurred. And again, I'll explain that more in a minute. The third thing you have to do in order to answer the question is describe how it changes with age. Are they born doing the behavior? Does it develop after they get stronger? Like, when do you start to see the behavior? Now, all of those things you can do for any behavior. You can study tigers with that behavior. You can study worms with this skill, right? It's always the exact same process. The trick is being able to apply it to the animal that you want, or the behavior you want to apply it to. So, what are innate behaviors? Innate behaviors are behaviors that animals inherit, where every member of that species is born with those behaviors pre-programmed into their DNA. Now, you may not see the behavior right when they're born, which is one of the most common mistakes people think about when they think about innate behaviors or instincts. They think it means it's something the animal does from birth. It's not. So imagine a baby bird is born, lives its life in the nest, mother flies away, baby flies away, comes back the next summer. The bird is not with its family anymore, and it builds a nest. So how did it know how to build the nest? It didn't learn because its mother showed it or because another bird showed it. It learned because, or it didn't learn actually. It knew how to do the behavior because nest building is an inherited behavior in birds. Was it doing it when it was born? No, it didn't start off its life building a nest. It was born into a nest, and then later on it built its own nest. So, and interestingly, birds even that have been, like if you remove a baby bird from its nest, raise it somewhere else, so it never really gets to see its parent's nest, and then you release it and it builds its own nest, it will build the exact same kind of nest as its parent, which is a good sign that it's probably innate. So you could add into your section, if you don't already have it, some of the criteria for knowing a behavior is innate. So 1, the behavior is done completely without any experience, right? The behavior is done completely the first time or so, right? So like sometimes it takes a little bit of practice, but generally like the first time they try to do it, they can do the whole behavior. The behavior is done the exact same way by every member of the species. And by that I mean, so not every behavior will fit into that category. Even things like if all members of the species feed, they go foraging, they hunt. So hunting behaviors might be innate, but the specific way an animal hunts could be very different. right? Through learning, they may learn to hunt differently. Wolves are a good example of this. Wolves all know how to forage and hunt for food, but individual wolves have very different strategies for how they like to take down their prey that they learn based on experience. So what is learning? Learning is not an innate behavior. Learning is behavior that changes as a result of experience. So if you're a wolf, it's innate for you to chase a deer and then try to grab onto it to bring it down. Now, if the first time you grab a deer by the back, or by, you grab onto its butt, you get kicked, you've had an experience. The next time you may go for the deer's throat or maybe for its nose, and you may become a wolf that prefers to attack deer from the front. There are wolves that attack deer from the back, wolves that attack deer from the front, but they all developed that behavior as a result of learning. Okay? If you're going to talk about learned behaviors, you need to say what experience the animal had that led to the behavior. Okay, so here's guided practice. Now, some of you may not have done this based upon the way you answered this part down here. You had to watch this video, so I'm going to play it for you right now. Let's watch.
Oh, look what he's doing. He takes a little piece of bread, puts it in, and I believe he's allowing the fish to come around that bread, and he's got them. What a clever bird.
So we see a bird picking up bread.
Yes. There he goes, and he takes the bread. Oh, what a clever bird.
Now, unlike the other birds, he's not eating the bread. He's dropping the bread in the water.
And he waits.
Moving it around.
Turns it around. And he just waits. He's moving to different areas.
There we go.
The fish. What a...
So, what's the behavior? This is pretty unique. I mean, in this case, the bird is fishing with bait. It's learned over its lifetime that it can use the bread people feed to other birds to catch the food it wants to eat, which is little minnows. So I decided to give that behavior a name. I came up with the name. I called it fishing with bait behavior, right? So the first thing I was asked to do here says, ask a question about the development using the proper format. And if I scroll all the way back up here, look, here's the proper format. How did, insert category name, behavior develop? So I wrote, how did fishing with bait, there's my category, behavior develop? And then I have to make a prediction to answer the question. And again, I'm going to use the skills outlined right here, part A, B, and C. Okay. So I start off by saying that I believe the fishing with bait behavior is likely developed as both innate and learned. One key here is there's no such thing as a learned behavior that doesn't have some innate parts. We can't learn to do anything that's not at least partially innate. Even very complicated behaviors, a layup in basketball, right? Not complicated for somebody who knows how to do it. And it might look at first like it's not an innate behavior, right? Because not everybody can do a layup effectively. And that's because we have to learn the behavior, but everybody can carry a ball, throw a ball, run, jump. Those are innate behaviors, right? And that's all it takes to be able to do a layup. So the innate parts of the behavior are those that the birds would do without any other experience. Fishing by standing over the water, striking at the fish, those are probably innate behaviors that all of those birds do. It's likely that the bird developed this innate behavior when they were very young, because it's necessary for survival, right? As soon as that bird stopped being cared for by its parents, it probably had to show that innate behavior of striking at fish and standing over the water. So there I'm talking about the age at which the behavior, appears. The learned part of the behavior is the bread to attract the fish. It's likely that the bird had the experience of seeing minnows gather around the bread. So that's experience. And the bird would see, oh, there's more minnows over there. And a bird that is striking at minnows to eat them might eventually notice, oh, they gather around the bread. It may have begun by fishing near bread that was thrown in, but later they changed their behavior and began picking up bread, putting it in the water to attract fish. This change in the hunting behavior to include bread shows learning. So, I talked about which parts were innate, I talked about which parts were learned, and how that learning would have occurred based on experience, and I described how it changed with age, right? So then I asked you to do the same thing. You have to watch a different video. In this case, it's a bumblebee doing a behavior. I'm going to let you watch that video on your own. But during that video, you're going to have to give the behavior you see a name. And then you're going to write the question out in the proper format, followed by making a prediction where you'll write a short paragraph like this, where you describe what you think the answer to the question you wrote here is. If you have more questions on this, please message me in Schoology. Good luck.